Hey everyone, Dr. Richard Lai here with Study Acupuncture with me. Now, this episode is on a really important topic. It is on sleep. Now, I know for me, I'm not getting enough sleep, and chances are you aren't either. So, this episode is on the causes for poor sleep and a couple things we can do about it. Now, before we get into this topic, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor. All right, and we're back. So you may have issues sleeping, or you might have a patient coming into your clinic complaining of sleeping issues. Now, these issues, they can range from a temporary inconvenience because maybe you're just stressed from work, or maybe you have personal reasons. So those personal reasons are keeping you up at night. On the other end of the spectrum, people do have serious, chronic, debilitating issues with sleep. And one of the most common issues is just straight up insomnia. Now, what is insomnia? Insomnia is where you either have trouble falling asleep, trouble staying asleep, or even just getting good quality sleep. So the question is, what causes that insomnia? Because if we know the cause of insomnia, then we can treat the cause. Then theoretically, we can avoid insomnia altogether. So in this episode, we're going to talk about 3 general causes that are relatively within our control for insomnia. And of course, there could be other causes for insomnia that you should reach out to your doctor and talk about, because this video is not medical advice. This video is strictly for educational purposes only. And I've chosen 3 specific causes in this video because they're the ones, in my opinion, that we have relative control over. So with each of those causes for poor sleep, I'll give you some tips related to those causes because, again, it's relatively within our control. And again, it's not medical advice. This is strictly for educational purposes only. So here are all the different causes of insomnia. We're going to talk about stress, irregular sleep schedules, and lifestyle choices. These other ones, mental health disorders, pain, medications, neurological disorders, all of these can also cause sleep issues, and you should talk to your physician about them. Now, the first one that we have is stress. So stress can come in a lot of different forms. Stress can come from work. Stress can come from school. Stress can come from family issues or financial issues. What happens in your body is that your body responds to that stress by being hypervigilant or hyper-aroused. So when it comes time to sleep, because your brain and your body are in this hypervigilant state, you're going to have a hard time winding down and falling asleep. And from there, it's actually a vicious cycle, because if you're unable to fall asleep, that could also be another cause of stress. Because now, not only are you stressed from whatever work-related issue it is or relationship issue it is, now you're also stressed from just not being able to sleep enough. So here's a couple tips for reducing stress so you can get better sleep. The first tip is just to get regular exercise. And what I mean by that is any form of physical activity. This can be walking outside for 20 to 30 minutes, just smelling the air, looking at the trees, and hearing the birds, and just getting some sunlight overall. Because number one, sunlight can actually help your body set your internal clock or your circadian rhythm and help you get better sleep. And then number 2, the research does show that exercise itself, especially aerobic exercise, like 30 minutes of walking, running, cycling, these have been linked to better sleep. Now, the only caveat that I'll say here is that you shouldn't exercise too close to bedtime. So try not to exercise within 1 to 2 hours of going to bed. Now, the second tip I can give you is about meditation, mindfulness, or just therapy in general. Now, meditation can come in many forms, and practicing mindfulness can also come in a lot of different forms. So one way to reduce stress is just to practice some form of meditation or mindfulness. There's so many different practitioners out there that you can learn from. Just search YouTube for some quick tips. So one way to reduce stress is just to practice some form of mindfulness or some form of meditation. You're going to have to see which one works the best for you. So whether you're going to practice some form of meditation or some form of mindfulness, both of these have been linked to stress reduction. Now, the last thing is just therapy in general. Talk therapy is so much more accepted and accessible today, and accessing a professional licensed individual can only benefit your mental health. Now, another cause of insomnia is having an irregular sleep schedule. And what that means is that you're not going to bed at regular intervals, meaning some nights you go to bed at 1 a.m., some nights you go to bed at 11 p.m. Or maybe because of your work, you have to travel between time zones. So all of that shifting, all of that irregularity about when you're going to bed, that can cause insomnia as well. And that's because our bodies are cyclical, just like the day is cyclical. We have a yin time of the day and we have a yang time of the day. It's just like the yin yang symbol. There's elements of yin within the yang, and there's elements of yang within the yin. So if you look at the daytime as yang and the nighttime as yin, you're going to notice that from sunrise to 12 p.m., the day gets progressively brighter, so more and more yang. And then as it gets closer to midnight, the day becomes progressively darker, so there's more and more yin. And during that time, there's actually elements of both yin and yang, or both day and night at any given time. From midnight, when it's dark, we still have the light from the moon. And as the sun starts to come up, the darkness starts to fade. So each day is cyclical, and so is your body. Your body is also cyclical, and it has something known as a circadian rhythm. Now, this circadian rhythm follows this cyclical pattern of day and night. So if you're going to bed at random times versus at a set scheduled bedtime every day, your body's going to have a hard time adjusting to those changes every single day. And so that can actually contribute to insomnia. So for this one, sleeping at a scheduled time is going to help you with your ability to fall asleep and stay asleep so that your body can fall into a rhythm and expect when it needs to wind down and when it's going to fall asleep. All right, lastly, we're going to talk about lifestyle choices. Now, these are the habits that you have in your daily life that may be unhealthy in terms of sleep quality. So if you were to adjust your lifestyle choices, you might get better sleep. For example, we talked about this one before, irregular sleep schedules. So if you're not going to bed at the same time every day, that can cause your body not to fall into a regular circadian rhythm. So if you set a bedtime of, let's say, 11 p.m. every day and work to wind down an hour before, can help you fall asleep and stay asleep better. So setting a bedtime of, let's say, 11 p.m. every single day and then working to wind down an hour before that bedtime can help you fall asleep better and stay asleep through the night. Now, the second lifestyle choice is about caffeine intake, how much caffeine you take in, and when you take that caffeine in, that's all a lifestyle choice because caffeine is a stimulant and it has a long half-life. And half-life is basically how long it takes for your body to break down that caffeine to 50% of what you originally consumed. So the half-life of caffeine is actually 5 hours. So, for example, if you're a fancy person, and every day you go to Starbucks in the morning and you get a grande iced coffee. Now, in that grande iced coffee, there's actually 165 milligrams of caffeine. So it's going to take you 5 hours to break down half of that caffeine. So it's going to take you 5 hours to break down 82.5 milligrams of caffeine. So let's say you bought that coffee at 8:30 in the morning and you just inhale it. You drink the whole thing. So that's 165 milligrams of caffeine straight into your stomach. Now, at 1:30 p.m., that's when you'll have broken down 82.5 milligrams of caffeine. And then at 6:30, finally, your body's going to have broken down all of that 165 milligrams. But that's not actually how we drink coffee, right? We take it into the car, we start to enjoy it, we get to work, we're still drinking it, we're sipping it as the time goes on. And by the time lunch rolls around, we're still sipping on that coffee. So whenever we drink that coffee, we're metabolizing that coffee. So from a sleep hygiene perspective, if you want to wind down your body by 9 p.m. and you want to get to bed by 10 or 11 p.m., you should really stop drinking coffee or anything caffeinated by 1 or 2 p.m. because you want to give yourself a full 10 hours before bedtime to fully break down that caffeine. Now, the third lifestyle choice is alcohol. Now, alcohol is something that's a heat energy drink, and it's also a sedative. So that's why it can make you sleepy, which some people will think that's great. That's going to help me fall asleep. But because energetically it's a heat energy drink, it will actually negatively affect your sleep quality. And it's actually been studied that alcohol, number one, can destroy your circadian rhythm. And then number two, alcohol can cause your body to only fall into a light sleep, which isn't restorative. Your body needs deep sleep. And so when you wake up, because you didn't get that deep sleep that you needed, you wake up tired. And what do you do when you're tired? Your brain and body is going to tell you, I need coffee, I need caffeine. So on your way to work, you're going to buy a cup of coffee, and that vicious cycle of caffeine induced poor sleep quality will continue. All right, now let's talk about sleep from a TCM perspective. So when we look at our patients and we look at their sleep quality, so in addition to modifying our patients' lifestyle choices that we just talked about so that we can help them have a cleaner sleep hygiene, from a TCM perspective, how do we look at our patients? From a TCM perspective, we look at the health and status of our patients' blood and yin, because the status of their blood and yin can affect their sleep quality. For blood, for example, you've heard over and over again that blood is the residence of the mind. And at nighttime, especially, our mind should be housed or should take residence in our blood. In other words, our mind should be anchored in the blood. We also have liver blood. Liver blood also affects our sleep. And with liver blood, the hun, or the ethereal soul, needs to be housed in the liver blood. So, to be even more specific, for the mind needs to be housed in heart blood. And hun needs to be housed or anchored in liver blood. So, mind housed in heart blood, hun housed in liver blood. So, the quality of our sleep is actually dependent on the anchoring of the mind and the hun. So, the question is, what can affect that anchoring? What can cause the mind and the hun to lose its residence in the blood? So we have two basic scenarios for that. We have a deficiency cause and we have an excess cause. So an example of an excess cause is where there's blood deficiency that's going to cause that mind or that hun to lose its residence, because simply there just isn't enough blood to anchor the mind or anchor the hun. So what's going to happen? Without enough blood to anchor the mind or anchor the hun, it's going to float up into the night, and that's what causes the insomnia. So in those cases, we would want to tonify blood, either tonifying heart blood or tonifying liver blood. And then we have the excess cause of insomnia, which in this case, the mind and the hun is still losing its residence in the blood. But what's happening is that there's actually a pathogenic factor that's agitating the blood. So for example, heat. If there's heart heat or there's liver heat, then there's going to be liver blood heat or heart blood heat. And that blood is going to be hot, and that's going to cause the mind or the hun to not be able to stay anchored in the blood. So what's going to happen? That mind or that hun is going to be agitated. So it's going to go up and float out of the blood. And ultimately, that's going to cause insomnia. So with this one, our treatment principle would be more so to cool the blood. All right, everyone. So that does it for this episode. If you haven't signed up for my email list, please make sure you sign up to get study guides that you can use to follow along with each episode. So how do you sign up for that study guide? Go to www.studyacuwithme.com to sign up right now. All right, everyone. Until next time, God bless and happy studying.